Like, if there's one reason that is the strongest reason why we're seeing so many blowouts, for me, it'd be 3-point shooting variance. Like, which one would it be for you?
I think it would be the amount of games in a short amount of time. Well, you were at Boston versus Miami, Game 4 last night. And unfortunately, I think the biggest storyline outside of the Celtics tying it up 2-2 and making it a competitive series is that everybody was left after last night saying, when can we have a good game? When are we going to get to watch competitive basketball? And I saw you retweet some numbers this morning, kind of
crazy.
giving some clarity to what we all feel. And yet when you see the numbers, it justifies how we all feel.
Yeah, Justin Fahn tweeted out the average margin of victory over the last 17 postseason games is 19.8, and there's been a total of only 7 clutch time minutes over those 17 playoff games. That's crazy, Chris. That's a cross series, cross different matchups that we haven't gotten all that many close games down the final stretch. And I mean, with this Miami-Boston series, I was texting with people last night, like, what do you think of the factors going into this? And nobody is given the same answer, and plenty of people are saying, I don't know, it just seems kind of random. I mean, is it injuries? Probably a little bit of that. Like, do you think it's a little injuries?
I mean, I think that part of it is injuries.
But not the whole thing, right? Not everything.
Well, I mean, the easy answer for everybody is always like, oh, well, this is what you get when these teams, there's a certain randomness to being able to make shots and 3-point shots. But
3-point variance, right? The variance aspects, yeah.
Okay, fine. I accept that could
people
possibly.
Say that too. Yep.
Yeah, well, because in the Dallas case, they hit him against Phoenix. They ain't hitting them now. There's a great variance to that. The shot quality tells you they're getting basically the same shots they did. They're not making them this series. They did last series. That it's random, right? But, okay, fine. Even if I accept that, last night, Boston missed 26 of its 3-pointers and got outscored by Miami in that category by 18 points. They still won the game by 20. All right,
exactly. So it's that, I mean, it's
all right,
just so it's
let's do away.
That.
Yeah, let's do away with that. Part of it is I do wonder if it is the very small amount of time between the games.
Yeah.
Right?
Could be that.
That that the adjustments are made from game to game. And that it just feels like it's every other day and it's coming at you. And so, especially for the older teams, right? And maybe some of the older players, that could have a profound impact on them, especially if they're nicked up and need to recover. So take, for instance, we saw, like, what happened to Chris Paul? Chris Paul was the best fourth quarter scorer in the entire NBA. He's been one of the best fourth quarter scorers in the entire NBA for 15 years. He was one of the best fourth quarter scorers early in that series. And so, they say he had a quad thing at the end, so let's accept that he was bothered by something. I don't want to take anything away from the defense that was played on him by Dallas, all right? But he's bothered by something, and there's no rest for the weary, right? A guy like that, when you're 36, 37 years old, you really need to have the requisite amount of time to rest that thing, and you're not getting any time. And you got to go out, and your best players, you got to run out there 35 to 42 minutes, right? And so you take into consideration, you go back through the year, there's a lot of these situations. In fact, most of them, where you're talking about 3 games in 5 days, right? Well, when we talk about it during the regular season, and we say that's their 3rd game in 5 days, or that's their 4th game in 7 days, like, those are usually known as trap games throughout the year, right? In gambling parlance, people people call these trap games because they say, all right, this is the dead team. This team has been off for a couple of days. Terrible spot for them. And then you see these wild outcomes. You remember a couple of years ago, and I don't think he does it anymore, but Baxter Holmes did that article. Remember I brought it up on the Mismatch years ago, and it was like this 4 and 5 days or 4 and 7 days. It was a whole column he did, and he updated it throughout the season. And it was basically the premise was schedule losses. And you would see like the outcomes in those things. And it would do some very good explaining for as we were going through an 82 game season, and we would see like the Tuesday night game. It's like the Heat play at Denver and the final score was 127-88. And you're like, what happened there? And then inevitably, you would go back and you would look, and it would be part of Baxter Holmes' article where he was chronicling, here are the spots throughout the month. And, I mean, the record was crazy. The record was crazy. Every time he wrote the article, the record was crazy. Like, you could spot these. And so, then you take – and now, this is a different situation because it doesn't necessarily favor a team like that article would, because they're both got whatever amount of games. But, again, I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm saying in a world where we are looking for answers, I mean, one of the things I can come up with is just it's game after game after game after game. The personnel changes, the guys are banged up. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be a factor. The timing of games. We mentioned injuries. We mentioned 3-point shooting variance. Something else somebody brought up to me that I thought was smart was these are defense first teams. So if you're getting off to a slow start on any, for any particular reason, just missing shots or like elite defenses being played to cause you into some turnovers, if these two defense-first teams, if one of them is scoring early, like the Celtics did last night, building an 18-1 lead early in the game, that team has an extra built-in advantage if they also are scoring in transition, getting stops, and then they have half-court possessions. It just kind of adds up early in games. And, I mean, it makes a little bit of sense to me. I mean, because it's kind of just basic basketball. You get a stop, you get a early offense, and then if you score with an increased chance of scoring on the break, that means you have a better chance of getting a stop on defense, right? Like simple stuff, right? It's very simple, but it does make sense to me, especially given the nature of some of the teams that have been remaining in the postseason. And someone else said to me, and this is like strictly about Miami and Boston, they're like, Boston has a bunch of young, like airheads in Miami. I don't think that they're that great. That's what this person said. And, that's just one person's assessment. But I think you add all of these factors up together, these, opinions about these teams and how they analyze them, the basics of basketball or like trends in basketball on the schedule. I think all of it's coming together, and it's all sort of just random now. I think a lot of it is just kind of random when you put it all together, but I don't think there's any one particular reason. If you had to choose just one, Chris, like if there's one reason that is the strongest reason why we're seeing so many blowouts, for me it'd be 3-point shooting variance. Like which one would it be for you?
I think it would be the amount of games in a short amount of time, that we would get much more competitive basketball if they had a little more rest. That's what I'd say.
You could be right.
You
could be right. I wonder if the league will reevaluate this in the years to come. Because there have been, I know Ben Taylor with his Thinking Basketball podcast, I saw he tweeted out a stat this morning from his show that showed there has been an increase in blowout rate in recent years. So like going back to 2017, 2018, it's like this year's an outlier compared to some of those other seasons, but it has been higher in the last 4 or 5 postseasons.
Josh Eberle tweeted out this morning, we've already had 22 games in the playoffs where a team has won by 20-plus points.
Man, that's crazy.
That's 15 so far this playoffs. Wow. Oh, I'm sorry. No, 22 this year. That's already happened. Last year was 15. The year before was 12.
Oh, wow.
So it really is way more this year.
It's crazy, dude.
And Think about this. Of the 76 games that have been played so far, 39 have been decided by 10 or more.
Man.
Over half. Over half of the games have been decided by double digits. That's crazy.
Yeah,
and 22
it's
and
weird.
8. How about this? And 22 of those 39, if we take the other stat, so 22 of those 39, it's 20 plus. 39 that are 10 plus, 22 that are 20 plus. And, I was reading this morning. When do you think the last game we had? This is an impossible thing to answer, so I'll just tell you. The last one possession game in the final 2 minutes of this postseason.
I have no idea.
Game 5, Celtics, Milwaukee.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. That's a good game.
That was May 11th.
It's almost 2 weeks ago.
That was the last.
Almost 2 weeks ago, Chris.
Almost 2 weeks ago. That was the last one possession game in the final 2 minutes was Celtics Bucks in game 5. It's crazy to think about because
that was the Drew Holiday game, right? The Drew Holiday block on Marcus Smart, the Drew Holiday steal, right?
Yep.